All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else? And in today's video, we are going to go through 4 skills that I would like to see adjusted before the next patch goes live. Now, as you guys know, I like to read the patch notes. The patch notes are always long and kind of tedious. Some of this stuff I talked about a little bit in previous videos. Some of it I overlooked, and so I wanted to talk about it a little bit more in depth in this video, talk about what it is, what the issue is, why I think an adjustment is needed, and potential fixes. And so ZeniMax came out and they said that they wanted feedback on all these sorts of things, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to provide feedback. Now, before I dive into this video, I wanted to tell you guys this. I'm sure there are more skills and abilities that I missed here. I am just one man that can't test everything, and because I can't test everything, I don't have experience on everything. So if something's obvious to you and I'm not talking about it in this video, bring it up. Tell me why it is an issue, what it is, all those sorts of fun things. And I will take a look at it myself when I get on the PTS. And if I agree with you, I will do another video talking about it. So I'm not trying to overlook anything. I'm not trying to be biased or anything, any ridiculous thing like that. It's just, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not going to talk about something I don't think I have at least a reasonable opinion or experience on. So yeah, send me that stuff. I would very much appreciate it. Let's dive into the video. Number 4, pretty easy first couple. Bound armaments. Bound armaments reduce the damage. The adjustments made were reduce the damage per hit of this ability by approximately 38%. This ability no longer passively increases your light attack damage. This is a substantial reduction. Reducing an ability by 40% in general typically means the skill is just not good anymore. Bound armaments used to function or have similar-ish, I think it was still less, but similar-ish tooltip damage to like spectral bow, and it functioned in the same way. You know, you had 4 daggers that would come and shoot out instead of 1 bow, and you could block some of the incoming damage, but it was a lot more pressure than burst on a Nightblade. But they function somewhat similarly, right? I think this is too much of a reduction in the first week of the PTS. I think Bowsork got a lot of backlash, and for good reason. Bowsork was Savage Werewolf. Savage Werewolf was incredibly powerful. The fact that you couldn't really purge it because it kept reapplying over and over and over again without a cooldown on range builds made it very effective. If you're going to reduce the light attack damage with bound armaments and everything, okay. I don't see the need to reduce the damage on bound armaments. I feel like in general, Stamsork, like if you compare this in PvP, right? If you compare a Stamsork in PvP versus a Templar or a Dragon Knight, it's really not close. They're not relatively close to the same tier, and I'm not calling for nerfs to those classes. You're going to see that in this video, guys. It's just those classes are fun, and the reason those classes are fun is because they can kill almost everything. And it would be great if every single class in the game had the ability to kill everything. Magsork's been struggling for a while. I could do an entire video talking about Magsork and why Magsork needs adjustments and everything, but they didn't really get anything this patch, and they didn't really get nerfed this patch from what I saw. And so the one that did was Stamsork. Stamsork had 2 very nice abilities. I know with hybridization they can use curse and everything, and that was one of the justifications for why bound armaments was adjusted. But you only have so many skills on your bar, and it's just one of those things where it's like, if you throw one thing on, you have to take something else off. And I'm not saying you can't use curse and bound armaments and stuff like that, but I don't know, man. I don't see the need to reduce this. I see this being a scenario where it just really won't fit on your bar the way it currently is. I think that's the issue, is making a skill obsolete is problematic. So yeah, that's number 4. Number 3, we'll stick with Sorks. We're going to talk about Crystal Weapon. Same thing. Reducing Crystal Weapon's damage by 41.5% is a huge, massive nerf that basically for melee Stamsorks makes the skill unusable. Like, it's not worth using anymore. And I know, guys, I've talked to a few people on Twitch streams and everything, and I agree that the double proc condition, the damage at range, Crystal Weapon had other issues, but I don't think you just reduce the damage by 41% because it can proc twice. I don't think that's the best way to go about doing it. I would get rid of the double proc condition personally. I would get rid of the ranged increased damage condition so that every Stam Sword can kind of utilize it similarly. If you did those things, I think it would be similar. I mean, it would be similar damage in PvE, but it would make it a lot more effective in PvP. Before we dive into the next video, I wanted to go on a little rant because is there no one else video without a rant? But there's not many good spammables. There are not very many good spammables in the game right now. There just aren't. Like if you think about the top spammables, you have sweeps or jabs like Templar, Thermorphs. You have DK Whip, Molten Whip, Flame Lash. Those are very good. You have Surprise Attack. Surprise Attack's fantastic. It's also popping up in this video. And you had Crystal Weapon. Those are the 4 good spammables. Everything else is underperforming relative to those things. And I don't want to see nerfs to good spammable skills. I think biting jabs, puncturing sweeps are good. I think Molten Whip is good. I'm going to make a terrible analogy here. But in the same way that PvEers complain about not being able to complete content because it's really hard to do, PvPers have an issue with PvP when you can't kill opponents. And oftentimes on some classes, you have a very hard time killing opponents because your spammables aren't very good and you just can't use them. And so Concealed Weapon got a nice buff. It would be great to see Swallow Soul get a buff. It would be great to see a skill like Force Pulse get a buff. It would be great to see D-Swing get a buff. If you compare like D-Swing to Surprise Attack or Crystal Weapon on live right now, it's really not close. Like considering the cast time that it takes for D-Swing to land, it should be hitting a decent amount harder than what these other spammables do. And the fact that these are instant and you can cancel them really well, D-Swing is a very underperforming skill. But the problem is because you nerfed Crystal Weapon so much, Stam Sorks are basically relegated to like Master's Dual Wield Dot to have decent burst or running D-Swing, which just isn't great. And so I know D-Swing gets a lot of flack, but if you want to compare it to other good spammables, D-Swing has the most counters. You have time to block it, you can dodge it, and decent players know how to do that. And it's very bad. And I don't want to talk too much about it because there's all these other skills. We can go into Flame Skull, we can go into Poison Skull, we can go into Poop Rock. Like all of these spammables are just not very good. You don't see them that often because they're not very good. And so it would be nice to see skills like Molten, Flame Lash, all these that are good stay the way they are. And then slowly you standardize and bring these other spammables up so other classes can compete. Because I really do think the issue with a lot of classes is their spammable damage is not the same as these other classes. And so they can't compete in the same way because they don't have the same kind of burst potential as these classes. And so if you're worried about burst potential, and you shouldn't be, but if you are, why do we have unblockable and undodgeable CCs on DK while they're hitting 16 to 18k whips with Oaken Soul right now? Why do you have an unblockable and undodgeable combination with Templar by dropping a meteor and throwing a javelin? Like if you're worried about that, I'm not saying you adjust those things. I'm stating that it's just kind of, I feel like the point is being missed, is all I'm trying to say. That's enough. That's enough off my soapbox. Let's talk about Spirit Guardian. Spirit Guardian is one of the morphs for the Necromancer. And I know, guys, woe's me to the Necromancer. The Necromancer has a ton of skills. But the Necromancer should be the benchmark for other classes as far as PvP standardization goes, in my opinion. Necromancer has access to so many good skills and morphs. It would be great if every class had this. This is part of the reason why I enjoy playing Necromancer, is because I get bored of the same playstyle, and Necromancer allows me to switch. And so there's a lot of versatility, and the versatility in the class is what makes it so much fun. The problem is, Spirit Guardian's one of the morphs of the Mender. So you have Intensive Mender and you have Spirit Guardian. Spirit Guardian's the one that reduces 10% of your damage. I'm going to pop it up here. But it says fix an issue where the transferred damage from this morph was not applying to the Guardian's health, circumventing the risk of the ability, ending it early in situations you are taking a significant damage over the duration. It will now die after absorbing 3,000 total damage, meaning after damage reductions you can take up to 30,000 damage over its duration before you perish. I kind of overlooked this, obviously. This isn't going to work in PvP. If you play any sort of outnumbered, you guys know, taking 30,000 damage it's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot. And this will basically reduce the cost of Spirit Guardian down to like intensive mender. And if it's dropping that much, the best part about Spirit Guardian is it traditionally has lasted longer for the duration, and it has saved you magicka. Now we can debate, and you guys feel free to go ahead and debate whether or not it should be 10% or not. But if you compare it to a skill like Revealing Flare, that already has like the ability to reveal opponents, and it gives you 10% as a major buff on that bar, having 10% being able to transfer over to 2 bars is similar. And so if you want to say it should be 6% or 8% or 9%, keep in mind that 10% isn't actually what you get. You actually get more like 6 or 7% depending on your build already. But if you want to say that the 10% mitigation, quote, 10% is too much, I would reduce it that way. The way this is currently set up and constructed is if you try to use a tank in PvE, this is talking about taking like a boss heavy attack and it immediately drops and you have to put it back up. And that's just one ability. And so you're often going to have situations to where if you're fighting outnumbered, or if you're a tank, which is what the skill is for, I'm assuming, in a PvE situation, you're going to take so much damage, you're going to have to constantly be reapplying it. And at that point, if you're taking that kind of damage to where you'd have to constantly reapply this, why not just run Revealing Flare? Why not just have the 10% there? Because clearly you're going to be stuck on that bar. This change renders this skill useless for the situations that it's applied for. And so I think the Spirit Mender change is good. It's just this specific morph with the health that is the issue. And so not just for PvP, like I said, like any sort of situation where if you need mitigation, you want to wear this because of mitigation, it's going to drop after you take X amount of damage. Why does a mitigation thing work like that? Like that, I don't know. It seems kind of counterintuitive to me. And so if you're going to adjust this and say, hey, like I said, percent mitigation's too high, drop it to 8%, drop it to 7%, whatever you want to do, just don't allow it to be able to be killed. And then it goes back to being usable again, if you want to make those adjustments. But the way it currently is constructed, I'm already coming up with other builds to not use this skill. Like I'll either use an intensive mender, or I will completely take this skill off my bar and run something else. I'm not sure yet, but I will not use this after testing on the PTS. Unusable in its current state, and it's week 1, so it's fine. I'm just explaining it. And the final one, Surprise Attack. I've already talked about this a few times. I'm not going to go too in depth on this. Surprise Attack is a great spammable in PvP right now. It is a fantastic spammable. I'm assuming that the critical strike for flanking an enemy is for PvE, and that's fine. I think that's fine. If you want to try and standardize this to bring up damage from a PvE situation, I have no problem with that. Just take off the critical strike modifier if you have Battle Spirit active. The guaranteed critical strike, because guaranteed critical strike on a stamina or on a Nightblade is not needed. This is completely not needed. And so in the same vein that I talked about this before, we see what happened when an overtuned setup with Stamsork this patch with Bowsork. We see what happens to Sork when all of a sudden people start complaining about a class so much. You get a nerf to bound armaments, you get a nerf to crystal weapon, you get all these other sorts of adjustments. This type of buff to an already powerful skill is going to lead to this class getting gutted. And I don't think anybody in this game wants their class gutted. I think we can all say that, you know, we'd like our class to be similar to like Magicka Dragonite and Magicka Templar, and we should do things to bring those classes up. Now, Nightblade's not bad. It is a good class. It really is. I would contend that it's not Dragonite or Templar. I think most people would agree. So if you wanted to try to bring them up that way, I would increase the speed on Spectral Bow. I would do stuff like that. I would make their combination a little bit less telegraphed and easier to less easy to avoid. Like you could still avoid it, but it's not so telegraphed. Like that's the biggest issue with Nightblade. And so if you're, it keeps happening. And so you see it with Ambush where they slapped a bunch of skills on it. Luckily, Ambush isn't a great skill, and so not many people are running it because it's not great. And you're seeing it with Mirage, and you're seeing it with, skills like Piercing Mark or Reaper's Mark, the one that gives you that ignores Battle Spirit. You see all these skills that are just getting buffed because, yeah, technically the class isn't Templar DK. I mean, I've heard people say Nightblade's the best class on PTS right now, and with a guaranteed critical strike surprise attack, I believe it. With Dark Cloak scaling at lower health, I believe it. And so I'm not ignoring this. I know I've said in the past that I am a 5-star Nightblade main. This is my most played class. I don't think this is needed. And so I would, if you're trying to bring it up, I would do other adjustments. I would potentially look at Dark Cloak. Let's throw in a quick fifth there. The low health Dark Cloak sounds kind of wild to me, but I haven't tested it fully. I would listen to other people that actually have tested it. Maybe I'll do a video in the future kind of talking about it. But those specific adjustments are things that aren't needed. And for enjoying this class in the future, this is the type of change that should not go live. And so that's my opinion. Make critical strike guaranteed from a flank in PvE. That's fine. If you want to go about standardizing it, just say when Battle Spirit as active, the skill procs off of your highest weapon or spell crit, or however you want to say it. I think that's the best middle ground way to do it. Adjust it through Battle Spirit, apply that modifier, because a guaranteed critical strike so unbelievably busted on Nightblade. It is so powerful. This really does need to be adjusted. So yes, that's the end of this video. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide in the section below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. Have a nice day.